as I did that, it made me much more equipped when I went to different universities and conferences and I was presenting to folks, the elders that are older than me, that I totally understood why they had such a negative impact, a negative image of all hip-hop, because their exposure to hip-hop is only being exposed to what the mainstream media allows to put out there. They're acceptable forms of blackness and brownness. And so with those elders, since I understood the media, I was able to kind of paint a large contextual picture of what is really going on behind the scenes media-wise, why you don't hear about these images that I'm talking about. And so I would have elders at the end, like, man, I stand corrected. I had no idea that hip-hop had all this, you know, had all this diversity in terms of political narrative. And, you know, they really said that they were really disgusted because they started to look at hip-hop, where I should say the purveyors of corporate hip-hop as kind of drug dealers, the peddlers of psychological opiates. So that being said, anybody know who Ed Bernays is? Let's get started right now. Anybody know who Ed Bernays is? Ed Bernays is known as the father of public relations, and at the very least, the father of American public relations. All right, he wrote a book called Propaganda in 1928. Why is this important? You have to understand propaganda. You have to understand media. He is the nephew of Sigmund Freud. You guys know who Sigmund Freud is, right? Okay, so he was oftentimes known as like the father of American psychology or Western psychology, Sigmund Freud. So that's his nephew. That is his nephew. He wrote. For instance, let's say the Creel Commission. All right, the Creel Commission, 1916, 1917. What's going on in 1916, 1917? Big thing going on worldwide, but World War I. The American people were not behind it. So Woodrow Wilson, one of my least favorite presidents, there's a long list of them, if you get to know me, but he's also, since we're talking about the media, he's one of the great, was one of the biggest promoters of that very racist movie called Birth of a Nation. He hosted it in the White House and said, wow, this is a unbelievable movie. The only sad thing is it's just so true. You know, and as we know, no black actors were in that movie. It was white, you know, they had white men that put shoe polish on their face, and the motive of that film was to drum up, yes, additional hatred, additional fear, additional stereotypes of black people in America. All right, so black men were supposed to be seen as hypersexualized, violent, stay away from them. They must almost be looked at as rabid dogs and put down. And it was a major propaganda piece for the KKK. So that's Woodrow Wilson. So anyways, Woodrow Wilson creates this thing called the Creel Commission. The Creel Commission, headed by George Creel, was a commission to, and he made no bones about it, we need to get the American public behind this war. And if you know also about World War I, it's one of the most ridiculous wars fought, and you know, literally millions and millions and millions of lives, well over 10 million lives were lost. So he needed the American public to have an about-face and to support this war. So a three-word term came out of that Creel Commission by the likes of Ed Bernays, who was brought in, who was a civilian that was brought in, to be a part of the Creel Commission. Why? Because his work in the realm of propaganda was so damn important. So of course, bring this dude in and help him figure out how we can get it, how we can monopolize the minds of obsequious Americans and get them to support this war. So a three-word term comes out of it called "support our troops," which is still used very effectively today, and very few people think, you know, really discursively or critical thinking. And critical thinking will be something that we covered throughout this presentation. Critical thinking. You must hone your critical thinking skills on a day-to-day basis. So it works quite effectively, and because of that, next thing you know, within months later, a few months later, you have almost a complete shift in the way many Americans are thinking about the war, and now go from either being indifferent or not supporting the war to supporting the war. Okay, he also, just real quickly, he also is responsible for something that also works on non-critical thinkers to this day. non-critical thinkers, and the fact that, okay, you know the whole thing, 4 out of 5 doctors say that starting your breakfast with such and such is the start of a healthy day, or how about this? 3 out of 4 dentists say brushing your teeth with Crest or Colgate is going to lead to the eradication of you ever getting cavities or what have you. You've heard that, right? Okay, that comes from this dude, Ed Bernays. He said, because he was hired by the pork industry, all right, that they wanted Americans to be eating bacon on a much more frequent basis. So he said, okay, I'll get a selected number of doctors, and as you know, right now in America there's about 700,000 to 800,000 doctors. So knowing that most Americans are not going to say, damn, how many doctors did you call? So get a selected number of doctors, have them endorse this, and then we can say 3 out of 4 or 4 out of 5. Doctors say starting your day with a breakfast with 2 strips of bacon is the start of a healthy day. It worked. He got women to smoke cigarettes, Viceroy cigarettes, simply by having luxurious women parade up and down the Macy's Day Parade smoking cigarettes, because at the time, in the early 20th century, it was very taboo for women to smoke cigarettes in public. And so by having these women with fur coats, you know, at the Macy's Day Parade, like standing on the side, they knew a lot of women would say, oh, wow, she's so regal, she's so luxurious, oh, and she's smoking a cigarette. Next thing you know, the sales of Viceroy cigarettes skyrocket. This is this dude. So I want to, and he's not a guy that most of us, at least I know not me, I would want to sit down and have a cup of coffee with. Not a simple cup of coffee. He was very much an elitist. Very much elitist. Didn't believe in the hoi polloi, the masses, us. He didn't believe, you know, so that to use a term like the 1%, that's who he got down with, the 1%, because that was his bread and butter. And so he said this, but like, as I said, it's important to read those books that you're not supposed to read. So I read this book that was written or published in 1928 called Propaganda. In almost every day, in every act of our daily lives, whether in the sphere of politics or business or in social conduct or ethical thinking, we are dominated by the relatively small number of persons who understand the mental processes and social patterns of the masses. It is they who pull the wires which control the public mind. That is as deep as you can get. That is as deep to the heart of it. And he's like basically saying, this is what's going on, and I'm a part of it. This is what's going on. And when he was writing that, he was writing it to those folks who are the people that ultimately would be controlling the public wires that control the public mind. So, and real quickly, I just want to mention just this guy, Walter Lippmann. He's another guy that I stumbled across and read many of his works. Another person that I wouldn't necessarily want to befriend, but it's very instructive to look at how he thought he referred to the American masses as the bewildered herd. This is very important because it's the same way today. It is the same way today. Studying these individuals is so important to understand the social fabric of today. Why so many Americans are so politically disengaged about things that are going on, not just domestically, but internationally. Okay? All right? So you have Americans come out and support wars on countries that they couldn't even tell you where that country is on the face of a map. They couldn't even tell you anything that was going on in Libya prior to when the U.S. media told them that it was a good time to go in there and bomb Libya. Now, that's a whole other story. We can get into that on a much deeper level. But he said that us, you, the average American, is the bewildered herd. They cannot accept, they cannot understand what's going on. We can't give them the complete panoramic perspective of what's going on. He wasn't talking about military secrets. He was talking about just stuff that an engaged populace should be privy to. They can't. So what we have to do is we have to filter out certain information and give them just little tidbits of information that we want them to have that ultimately shapes their thinking towards our eventual end game, what we want to accomplish anyways. And it works to this day. I mean, I do it. I also host a community radio show. And being an independent journalist, which is something I got into because of the work I do, I found out most of the people that I talk to, most Americans that I talk to, when you ask them, when you say like Obamacare, for instance, they can't even tell you what the real name of the bill is, because they've accepted the narrative that's been fed to them by the media. Obamacare, Obamacare, Obamacare. They can't even accept it. So, of course, they don't know the intricacies of the bill if they don't know what's called the Patient Protection and Affordable Health Care Act. I mean, that's just one example. So we put up here the engineering of consent, and that's what Bernays referred to it as. We must engineer, we must manufacture consent. We must engineer, like literally, we must engineer consent from the American populace. So as we move forward, wow, what a major jump from Lippmann and Bernays to hip-hop. How do we make that jump? So anyways, I just want to get this out of, just get some facts on the table right now. Hip-hop is not a musical genre. All right? Hip-hop is a culture. It's a culture. All right? Within that culture are aspects of music, such as rap, which is rhythm and poetry. Rhythm and poetry is an aspect of hip-hop culture. All right? It's what we would call an element of hip-hop culture. So would also DJing be. DJing would be a musical aspect of hip-hop culture. But also, think about this, and I want you guys to consistently think, those of you that consider yourselves hip-hop fans, and even those of you that know what hip-hop is, and just consider yourselves passing fans, oh, when I'm at the club or the party, I might listen to it, or when there's a hot song on, whatever, whatever they're playing. I want you to understand this, because those outlets that you listen to, or that you watch, whether it's any of the Viacom networks, BET, VH1, MTV, they're all owned by Viacom, owned by this guy named Sumner Redstone. Okay, 95.5 is also owned by Viacom here in DC. They don't talk about this aspect. They don't talk about knowledge of self, knowledge of community. They don't tell you. They don't have the shows breaking down and telling you that the founding principles of hip hop culture. Imagine if little shorties, youth, 12, 13, 9, 10, that walk around that, if you're from, a city or something like that, you've heard, youth, maybe not even a city, it could be a town, whatever. Hip hop is now everywhere. You heard a little shorty, using language and talking about things that he or she shouldn't be thinking about. Young women, young girls, young girls, acting out ways that they shouldn't act out. Imagine if they knew that hip hop, so the little shorty talking about, emulating, violent acts, verbally that he hears that he's heard on the radio and on television. Imagine if he knew that hip hop culture was peace, love, unity, and having fun. Those are the founding principles. It's not something new. It's something that was established in 1973 by Afrika Bambaataa. Peace, love, unity, and having fun. Imagine if they knew that if you were into hip-hop, you must be into knowledge of self and community. Okay? Imagine if they knew that. So hip-hop has 3 different stages. It has the early 70s, the beginnings, was an outlet for urban youth. And these are just because, this is just, we're working with a restricted amount of time. Usually, with my class and different workshops, I actually get into the often untold history of hip-hop, which covers everything. I started in the 40s with the sound systems coming out of Jamaica, because the godfather of hip-hop, or the father of hip-hop, is a Jamaican national, DJ Kool Herc, and he brought that sound system with him. So this is just a truncated version and glimpse of hip-hop. Golden era, and different hip-hop historians, scholars have, but it's roughly mid-80s to the early to just touching the mid-90s. That's the golden era, the era of consciousness, where we have where more and more hip-hop artists, men, women, black, mostly black, Latino, and even some white hip-hop artists like Third Base really start to use hip-hop and their music as a tool to say, listen, this is my platform. I'm going to stand on this platform. I'm going to stand on this platform, and I feel like a certain responsibility. I can make it sound dope, but at the same time talking about issues that are going on in my community, issues that are going on worldwide. So there are songs that buck the system, that talk about institutional racism. I mean, shoot, for God's sakes, we had Third Base, which is 2 white MCs and a black Jamaican DJ by the name of Richie Rich. They had a song called "There Is No Master Race," and the 2 white MCs, obviously they're MCs, they're the ones on the microphones. They're talking about that this whole notion that white people are superior than black people or people of color it's a farce. It's a myth. There is no master race. There is no, and it was a song that was attacking white supremacy. They also had a song that attacked apartheid. So they attacked apartheid within a song called Gas Face, where they said P.W. Botha against the gas face, and he was the leader of the white minority regime of South Africa at the time. This is what hip-hop artists did, and it sounded good. It sounded good. And I was 13, 14, 15, and you're taking this in, you're hearing it over and over again. You start to become politicized. You start to become civically engaged and start to understand things in a different way. Just like kids now that are engaged and become inquisitive when they hear Cristal or this, that, and the other, want to know what it is, and start to mimic, just mindlessly mimic, the words Cristal and other liquors in this, that are listed in the song just because they hear them in the song. We were inquisitive. Brother Ray Sean and I and so many others were inquisitive as well. We were just exposed to different kind of things. We were just exposed to things that were a lot more positive, if you will. So we go to the Golden Era. We have Boogie Down Productions. This is just a smidgen of the artists that were around that time. I just wanted to put just some stuff up there. We have Boogie Down Productions, KRS-One, Eric B. Rakim. Youth activism starts to spike up, and as Dr. Ray will tell you, this is also a time that is not a fairy tale time. This is especially when the Golden Era starts. You're talking about the Reagan era, which, as much as people want to herald Ronald Reagan as being this whatever, people on the media want to. You talk to black people who were alive at that time. Reaganomics was very, very unkind to people of color in America. It was very unkind to a lot of folks. But Reagan is championed as a great communicator. Yeah, the great communicator also communicated, as you remember, what he said about black women in Chicago being welfare queens. The great communicator also communicated when he was running for president in 1979, 1980, when he was giving a stump speech in Denver, and he referred to black men as bucks. If you don't understand what bucks means, bucks is old slave terminology that is used to describe black men that commonly would be put on the stage before they were sold, butt naked with linseed oil all over them. All right, this buck, $250 for this buck. Yeah, he knew what language he was using. He was rallying his base. So there was also a huge gang epidemic. There was gang warfare. There was violence. There was so-called black-on-black violence, that was in inner cities. Man, it was huge. I mean, the state of California, any given month, they might have 200 homicides. I mean, gang warfare was at an apex. So it wasn't pretty. It wasn't pretty, but the music tapped into the sensibilities of youth, especially marginalized youth of color, youth that are from governmentally neglected communities, and tapped into them. So, in 1989, we also have, this is an example of the music that we have. It's an example. So we have Kumo D, a song called Now I Just Can't. Imagine that. One of the most popular songs by one of the most popular artists at that time, by an artist by the name of Kumo D. And it's called Knowledge is King. And he says, right here, I'm giving you guys a talk on media literacy. He was giving us a talk on media literacy. And he said, I won't believe the hype. I understand the media dictates the mind, rotates the way you think, and syncopates slow pace. Brains can't maintain a certain insipid, insane crash range. So think about that. Being 13, I'm going to date myself, being 13 at the time and hearing this word insipid. I didn't know what the word insipid meant. I didn't know it meant dull. So they didn't dumb it down to us. We had to go and look up those words. We wanted to know what this word meant in the context of whatever. But he's saying, I understand the media dictates the mind and rotates the way you think and syncopates and slow pace. Come on. These are some of the names we got from hip-hop, from the golden era. I was introduced to all the names that Dr. Ray and I did not and should have gotten in the classroom, but got at home and got from hip-hop artists. Got Marcus Garvey, Steve Biko, Huey P. Newton, Kwame Ture, some of you guys may know him as Stokely Carmichael. These names were mentioned. Ida B. Wells, the great anti-lynching activist. All right. These names we got from the margins of hip-hop songs. All right? And therefore, you didn't know if they were referring to another rapper at 13 or 12, but you wanted to know who the hell Steve Biko was. You wanted to know who he was, and when we found out, that's when things started to click. Maybe that's why they won't want me to know who Steve Biko is in the classroom. Maybe because he represents a resistance. Maybe because he represents a psychological resistance to white supremacy. Maybe because he represents a psychological resistance to oppression. Because he is the founder of the Black Conscious Movement, BCM, and one of the founders of the South African student organization, SASO. So these are the issues that were discussed in the golden era. Police brutality, rampant poverty, racism, oppression. And I guess if you don't know, as they say, now you know. These are also issues that are going on now. You may think you live in a post-racist society. Not a post-racial society, a post-racist society. You think you're living in one, you're not. Okay? That dream has not been achieved in any shape, form, or fashion, even if there is a black president in the White House. No shape, form, or fashion. Okay? And I'll show you some stuff to elucidate that, because in 1968, Dr. King was killed April 4th, an area where Dr. Ray is from, Memphis, Tennessee. Okay? One of my champions, one of my heroes, if you will, especially because of the work he did the last 3 years of his life. He was anti-capitalism, anti-military industrial complex, anti-obviously racism, white supremacy. Matter of fact, he gave a lot of speeches the last 2 years of his life where he did not mince his word. He mentioned white supremacy by its name. White supremacy, oftentimes. He was not very, he started to not even like white liberals anymore, because he found out like they're just trying to put a Band-Aid on whatever. You know what I'm saying? So he was much more attracted to white progressives and folks who are really trying to move civil rights and human rights to another level. All right? So he's killed in 1968. For every dollar the white person gets in 1968, a black person on average gets 54 cents. 54 cents to a dollar. That's not even close to equality, is it? 2012. Yeah, for all you post-racist believers. 2012. And as I said, I want you to sink your teeth into this. As long as you get your narrative from the likes of MSNBC, CNN, I do not have to mention Fox News. They speak for themselves. But unfortunately, many of us think that because of the whole liberal media kind of BS kind of thing, we buy into it. They're not talking about the fact that in 2012, for every dollar the black person gets, for every dollar the white person gets, a black person now is getting 59 cents. When I started doing some of these economic studies 2 years ago, it was actually 61 cents. It's actually gone back 3 cents. Okay? So 59 cents to a dollar. 2012. Ain't no one, since the media's not telling us about it or talking about it, unfortunately, we're not thinking about it. We're not thinking about it. So all these things are all addressed during the golden era. And this is little old cuddly Dr. King. Did you just think he's a little cuddly old guy, just walked around just to get along to go along? No, he was much more than that. He was much more than a little soundbite that many of you just know him by, the content of the character and not the color of the skin to be judged by. No, he was much more than that. He was much more than that. If you can sink your teeth into anything, go back later tonight, and you can go to YouTube and listen to his speech called Beyond Vietnam, Breaking the Silence. Listen to that, or even read the transcript, just Google it, and listen to what he has to say at Riverside Baptist Church, 1967, April 4th. And where he says, a nation that continues year after year, and he was talking about, there's no equivocation, he was talking about the United States government. A nation that continues year after year to spend more money on military defense than on programs of social uplift is headed to its spiritual doom. These themes are also addressed today. They're addressed today. But you don't hear about them. You've heard about Harriet Tubman, the Underground Railroad. The Underground Railroad was not literally underground. It was not literally underground. There was like this long, underground cabin that folks went from the southern states all the way to the north. All right? Okay, it was referred to underground. It was because it was suppressed by the dominant hegemony of the time. Okay? It was suppressed. Okay? It was suppressed. And so that's why hip-hop now that talks about political narratives that is not being played, even Most Def and other artists, that's why that music is referred to underground hip-hop or underground rap, because it is being suppressed. It is being suppressed by finance capital and corporate media that don't want those narratives out there, because those narratives are conducive to critical thinking, and critical thinking does not mix good with people that you want to make sure that they mindlessly buy the products that are being sold in between television shows or music videos, known as commercials. That's how corporate media makes its money. It makes its money largely based off of ad time that's sold. Critical thinking doesn't mix well with folks that you want to make sure go out and buy a 16 pair of sneakers when they have 10. So we get to this era, this is what I would call rapsploitation, the end of the conscious era, 1995, 96, was the Telecom Act. It just shows you where Democrats and Republicans come together a lot more than you think they do, where the Republican Congress passed the Telecom Act of 1996. That Telecom Act of 1996 was quickly, without any fuss, signed by America's first black president. I'm joking, okay? Bill Clinton quickly signed that bill, Telecom Act of 1996, and subsequently that bill, within 2 years, oh my gosh, what is this media, Solomon? What does this have to do with race policy? What we're talking about public policy? Dr. Ray wanted me to come in and talk about public policy. Let me tell you about that. Well, that bill, single-handedly, within 2 years, decreased black ownership of radio by 70%. Not that it was extraordinarily high at the time, but at least in communities, there was black media and black radio that was making an impact on those communities. It was telling narratives and broadcasting news and information that was being ignored or obfuscated by the dominant media at the time. 70%. You guys know who Carl G. Woodson is, right? Just a little old critical thinking. Anyone know who Carl G. Woodson is? That's crazy. One person. But I don't blame you now. If I see you 2 weeks from now, any of your faces, and I talk to you who Carl G. Woodson is, then that's when I blame you. I blame your school systems. The school systems that we've all been a part of. I blame them. That is crazy. It is absolutely crazy that we can, many of us, we can tell you who George Washington is and Thomas Jefferson, even though George Washington owned 317 African slaves. And you can say that he chopped down a cherry tree this and don't know all that stuff. But you don't know about Carl G. Woodson, who was as big a part, a huge man when it comes to the scope of American society, especially black people in America. Tell us, educate us.
Well, I don't know much about him. I just know he's known as like the father of black history.
Yeah, right. Second African American, received a PhD from Harvard University. Wrote this beautiful book called Miseducation of the Negro. You can get it online. I wrote it, not promoting. Well, you can go online. You can buy it from a lot of different places where they sell the books, or go to a local bookstore and ask them to order it for you. It's called The Miseducation of the Negro. About this thick, written in the early 30s, or published in the early 30s, and it is as on point today as it was back then. What is he saying? He says, part of it says, when you control a man's thinking, you don't have to worry about his actions. And then he goes on to start talking about You know, there's you ask him to make a door for you, he'll run through that wall, make a door for you. Basically saying that when you control somebody's thinking, they don't have an ability to think for themselves, you can make them do anything that you want to do. You can make them do anything that you want to do. So let's keep moving on. This is Larry Mays, quickly, and then we're going to get to the real strong public policy part of it and finish this thing strong so we get to some questions. Larry Mays is the owner of, and props to Dr. Ray for bringing me in, because quite frankly, when I started learning this stuff, it had a profound impact on me and how I was able to see and navigate through, as I said, these dominant narratives that we're bombarded with on a day-to-day basis. Not just things that are telling you to buy this, but also things that are telling you how to think politically and socially and so forth. And so he owns, Clear Channel owns over, oh my gosh, I forgot, 1996, after the Telecom Act was signed, and I want you to know, that act was signed because of what happens in Washington. What happens in Washington when a bunch of corporations put their money behind something that is going to be befitting and is going to help their overall interests? Lobbyists, right? And it usually gets passed because those senators and congressmen and sometimes even presidents, or oftentimes even presidents, get influenced by that. So, media interest pushes this bill toward its eventual signing. I told you about its impact on black radio ownership. It also decreased women ownership of radio stations. But it also who wasn't impacted negatively was corporations. So before, if you were a major corporation, if Ray Sean and myself owned our own company, media company, before 1996, we could only own 40 radio stations. That was a cap, 20 AM and 20 FM. After that was signed, it means there was a free-for-all. If you had the money, you could just go out and buy them out. And so Clear Channel goes from owning 40 to owning over 1,000. Now they own over 1,200 radio stations coast to coast. All right, and that came at a cost. That's how they were able to acquire black stations and force them out of business. So he says, and a lot of these stations that he has also cater towards an urban audience. All right, it's code word for people of color. All right, and those of you that listen to R&B and hip hop and reggae music. And so so he's telling you right here, we're not in the business. See, this is the problem. We sometimes ignore the most blatant stuff that is said by these folks that don't have our best interests, and then are trained to actually be their biggest advocates and defend them. And he's saying, we're not in the business of providing news and information. So we're not in the business of providing well-researched music. So Allah, of course we're not going to tell you hip-hop is peace, love, unity, and having fun. Of course it's not. We're going to give you as many acceptable forms of brownness and blackness as we want to. And, you know, because black death sells. You know, images of black men killing other black men, whether it's in the narratives of song, that sells, man. Before you have white kids pulling their pants down and walking around and talking about busting caps. Oops, I guess it does happen, doesn't it? We're simply in the business of selling our customers products. Media representations play a role in people's understanding of social reality. We need to deconstruct these narratives. Let's keep going. These images, what do these images mean to you? All right, none of us in this room, even old-ass Dr. Rayshawn Ray and old-ass Solomon Kamajan, were not alive at that time.
Oh, Al Jolson.
Huh?
Al Jolson.
Al Jolson, right here. Al Jolson, right here. Al Jolson here, Al Jolson here. Pre-Shoe Polish blackface, post-Shoe Polish blackface. All right? So, he was at, yeah, and Al Jolson made a rack of money, right? He made a lot of money.
Top entertainer back in the day.
That dance, like, you know what I'm saying? You know, and he was acting out, you know, what folks felt comfortable in terms of their stereotypical imagery of black people, black men. You know what I'm saying? And it was a laugh, it was a riot, right? People laughed, it came again and again, right? Step and fetch it, you know, these are the roles that were offered, and when Dr. Ray and I were growing up, there was, I mean, to give you an example of hip-hop, there was a song called Burn Hollywood Burn by Public Enemy, Ice Cube, Big Daddy Kane, and the song was called Burn Hollywood Burn, and it was a song about it was saying like, yo, we as people, we need to no longer support, you know, these roles that they give us about playing a butler, a maid, or a drug dealer, or a pimp, or a pusher. You know what I'm saying? Like we need to reject these, you know. And so that was hip hop. And so all these images. But what do these images mean to you? Are they racist? Are they nice? Are they? Kind of an obvious question. Yeah. So you have coon, which is just another term for the N-word, the word nigger. Yeah. It's as bad as the N-word. It's important to actually say it, but not in reference to saying it as if it's cool. But you know, people need to understand that this is a term that was the last thing that a lot of black, to talk about Ida B. Wells, who was a champion for anti-lynching, all right? Because between the late 1800s and 1920, what was it, 20-something, 26, 29, there were over 3,000 black people that were lynched. All right? And sometimes the last thing they heard was die nigga die. Die nigga die. Okay? So when you think about the use of that word, next time you use it casually or think that it's just, you know, it's just light.
Like Call of Duty, that's the same thing you hear now.
Huh?
You play Call of Duty online Modern Warfare, that's the same thing you'll hear now.
They said the word nigger in there?
Oh my God. No, not on the game.
Oh,
online.
Oh.
Online, you'll play with white kids or somebody, you know, that's all you hear when they're shooting it, when they go out black.
Oh, because you can play people from other countries and states. Yeah. See. Yeah. So these images, thank you for that. Appreciate that. These images were used to sell everything from soap powder, detergent, to books, so forth. Little Black Sambo. They were used. All right. These were the images that were used to make money. Because boom, if we can make money selling the, you know what I'm saying, a recreated, you know what I'm saying, image of black people, the image of black people that we want out there, we can make money selling that. Damn. At the same time, making sure that the stereotype and the way we think about black people in this country continues to move forward. Damn. But here's the thing. At the same time, there were individuals like these that were alive. This is just a snapshot. With Du Bois, and I don't know. I've never had a conversation with Dr. Ray about this, but him being a sociologist, I'm willing to bet him being a black sociologist, black male sociologist, that I'm sure in some shape, form, or fashion that he's inspired by the work of this sociologist right here, W.B. Du Bois, perhaps the greatest, not just sociologist, but probably one of the greatest scholars in the last century that this country has known. Du Bois was known for his work. He was a Pan-African. I mean, the guy was just, you know, unbelievable. First African-American to receive their PhD from Harvard. Bessie Smith, Marcus Messiah Garvey, Ida B. Wells. That's Ida B. Wells, the great Ida B. Wells who I was talking about before. Phil Randolph, and later down the line, you know, you have Andrew Hamer. But especially these individuals. Think about it. There were individuals like this. There was no shortage of them. They weren't used to to promote products. They weren't used to promote products. Why? Because you start to promote these images, these individuals, that rejects the racist stereotypical images that we're trying to popularize, that were being popularized at the time. Damn, that was deep back then. Golly. Oh. Let's take a glimpse of some images of today. Yeah, damn, as I said before. Damn, that was deep back then. You look at this. We can easily see, man, yeah, these are racist, stereotypical images. And as I said before, the thing about this, when you popularize images, I wouldn't tell you how many times I've had to, when you popularize certain images, it even puts, like as I said, unfortunately, people that are being represented, I would say, represented in these images. People from those populations sometimes have this knee-jerk reaction and want to defend these, not knowing the underlying story behind these. And what I mean by story, not even the fact that, okay, yeah, Solomon is a I'm a peaceful guy, except for, self-defense. I believe everyone has the right to defend themselves. So I'm not promoting violence in any shape, form, or fashion. I just want to make a point that we know when we look at this, we know that this gun, the implicit message that we get from this is this gun, 50 is pointing this gun at somebody who looks like me, at somebody who looks like you. If it was known that 50 was pointing this gun and at the other end of that was somebody who was white, you think they would want to popularize that? Those that control the media, do you think they want to? We'll get into who controls the media. Just to give you a little example, 0.6% of all, 0.6% of all television stations in America are owned by people that look like me, black people. If you take all people of color, black people, indigenous Latinos, Asian Americans, Asian Pacific Islanders, indigenous Americans, Native Americans, you put them all together, anyone that identifies with being of color, even when you put them all together, 3.4% are owned by people of color. Radio, does it get better radio? No, it doesn't get any better radio. Put all people of color together, and they own less than 8% of all radio stations in this country. So you look at the images these are safe images. So I say safe because even though it's a gun, it seems kind of contradictory. A gun, but it's a safe image. It's a safe image because it's a comfortable. This is a comfortable version of what we see black men as being in America. It's a comfortable version, especially. Hold on.
Sorry, I just had a quick question.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, even when the image tends to shift, because I know that even for 50% at the start of his career, he did have this image, but now he's going more into a businessman.
Business, more entrepreneurial.
It's the same way with Jay-Z, who, 50 Cent doesn't make music as much as Jay-Z still does, but Jay-Z, even Nelly, has become, has gotten more into a business realm. So it's even when these images shift, though, I would say that the idea stays the same. Even the fact that 50 Cent was initially seen as a criminal, and now that he's a businessman, the idea of him being a businessman is not promoted. So I feel like it's kind of hard in a sense to say that, I don't know, that all these people who come out won't necessarily want to have this negative image.
Yeah.
More so than that image is just the one that's promoted mainstream. Because even though he's made the shift, most people don't know he's made the shift, or it's not even out there. Same way with Nelly.
Like I said, Black Death sells, man. It sells. It sells. And these images, and at the same time, real quick, brother.
The reason why they're safe because it makes a lot of money in the business. It's possible. And the worst part, these hip-hop radio shows are essentially the modern minstrel show.
You got it. Couldn't have said it better. Modern day minstrel. You got it. Modern day minstrel. We just have to wake up and more of us need to see it like you see it. See it as modern day minstrel. Because at the same time, and good point you bring up, at the same time, all right, and I'm not a big person for censorship as long as there's balance, all right? But right now, when you turn on the radio, when you go home, your music that you listen to, hip-hop is being censored. It is being censored. Because as I said before, those underground hip-hop artists that are out there that are wildly talented, some of them are extremely talented, have dope beats, and have lyrics for days, they are being censored. Those messages, those narratives are not allowed to meet your brain, not allowed to reach your subconscious and your conscious. They're not supposed to, and it's not out of lack of trying. They say, no, we're not playing it. So at the same time, when they provide these, as you brought up, at the same time, you have to look at what's being left off, what's not allowed to be juxtaposed to a 50 song or gosh, Jeezy, we can just go on, all the Youngs and all the Lils, That's not me. We have Lil' Kim. I mean, this is not unlike the Jezebel. I mean, black women were promoted around as being, you know, the Jezebel, hypersexual. As you know, a lot of black African women who were enslaved were subsequently raped, gang raped, you know, by their slave, you know, slave holders and their friends and what have you. So, you know, so this, you know, we're gonna have this. We're gonna have all this, and we have, you know, Lil Wayne and Fat Joe here. You know, and it's not like they're sitting here right now, you know, and they got a safe behind them and they're stacking up money in the safe, you know, to give the image of like they're saving their money, you know, and they're stacking up. Nah, we get it, we throw it. Yo, we get it, we throw it, man. Buy some more rims. Throw it. Throwing it up, man. Throwing it up because that image on the psyche, especially of young kids of color in general, you know what I'm saying, whose communities are being economically ravaged. You know, maybe you guys even talk about gentrification and that kind of thing. You know, the psyche on that is like, yo, you get on this paper chase at any cost, you get on this paper chase. And when you get that money, man, you spend it on any old dumb stuff, where you get it and you spend it, you throw it. Yo, listen, I'm trying to tell you, I also do a lot of work, as Dr. Ray knows, I do a lot of work, volunteer work, in juvenile detention centers and prisons, working with young men, mostly young men of color, because as we know, you know, we're in the midst of a new Jim Crow, as Michelle Alexander deemed it, you know, where you have 49% of all the people that are incarcerated in this country are black, you know, even though, I mean, black people, all the people that are incarcerated in this country, 49% are black, and we represent 13% of the population, so that's not even including Latinos, and so it's a major critical issue that we see in America today. So I want to break down something. As I said, I've become a little obsessed with numbers and media. But I want to just, and I just was putting some stuff together, but you can go to 2012 and 2011. There's a site called Urban Insight. See, I don't hide numbers. I want you guys to go and delve into this stuff. And I have some printouts. But when you go to, so for instance, you want to go, I just want to show you the impact. You look at the playlist, right? You look at the playlist. In that week right there, I just took that week, May 15th to May 21st, that 1 week, this song by Ludacris, My Bad Chick, it was played 3,200 times in that 1 week. That's the aggregate time on all the radio stations in America that play that song. 3,200 times it was played. You take the aggregate number. That represents that, when you look at the media markets on each one, they do these studies, that 24 million people, 24,660,000 people in that 1 week heard that song. A lot of them heard that song over and over again. A lot of them were under the age of 16 and so forth. So we look at this fine piece of work, this song here, all right? What would be wrong with this fine song? Now look at your girl, she might be sick, and my girl's sicker, she rides that and handles her liquor. I knock a bitch out and fight, coming out swinging like Tiger Woods' wife. Misogynistic? Let's not even use the word sexist. Misogynistic? Yeah, I think so. What kind of impact would that have to a malleable mind, you know what I'm saying? 16, 15, you know, who hear this music over and over again, and at the same time juxtapose nothing to a song of black and brown men that are hailing women. There are songs out there here right now by talented artists. I know a lot of them, you know, that, you know, are not being played. Let's go to another song, same week. This song, 2,600 times, represented 17 million listens. This is Young Jeezy Implies. I mean, and here it is, like, yo, what a great depiction and understanding of black men, right? This is, you know, G-code, black shade, my black chain. But if you wouldn't understand it's a black thing, you know, if we drink that rosé till we black out, wake up some more, pass out, right? Okay. So at the same time, this song is out, but not being played. This song by Capital X. 2010. Never played on any of those radio stations that carried these songs. Never, not once. I know this guy well. I actually, when I went and was in Norway, I did some lectures with him. But, and so he's talking about the prison industrial complex. I'm tired of this hypocrisy and democracy of justice. I'm tired of seeing our children carried off in prison buses. So, there's no bounds. The song's not played after that song, or after this song, or before this song, and before that song. No, never. Never. These are the discomforting images. Whether it was back in the day with Queen Latifah or Bahamadia, who was not scantily clad, as we saw with Little Kim. We have, Dead Prez. We have Acrobatic. Why is it discomforting? It's discomforting because these are images that represent black and brown people who are saying, I have a mind of my own, and I don't have to accept these narratives that you're feeding to me about my people. I don't have to accept this narrative. All right.
The main reason why it's dangerous to discuss it is because it's too real. These people represent reality, what African Americans are. It's too real. Entertainment is about fantasy, and the more real it is, the more reason they get people to think.
Yeah, you're right. Thank you. Well done. Teach on. I'll move to the next slide. And at the same time, you have Dead Prez with a song called Malcolm Garvey Huey, where M1 says, listen to this. This song was not played. It was not played anywhere on those stations before that I showed you before. So you know that negative BS, all that stuff, man. You just fed to that mental drug that you get. And as Malcolm said, it's like a media Novocaine, where you start to suffer peacefully, right? The media does that to you. You get all this stuff, and you lose all kind of recognition of how bad things really are. How bad things really are. So you hear this, and so you're thinking about making money and divorcing yourself with the community and this, that, and the other. I'm getting my paper at all costs. I'm gonna get mine, you better get yours. You know what I'm saying? I'm getting mine, you better get yours. Right? Get all that stuff. And the crazy thing is, it's coming from the mouths, you know what I'm saying, and programming mostly black and brown people that, since black and brown people were brought to this country against their will, and even before so, everything about their culture, everything about our culture has been about community, has been about communalism, coming together, especially in the most difficult of times. But I'm a capitalist now, and I can say they wouldn't even know what capitalism is. So there's, I get mine, you better get yours. And you have people, now that will talk and say it, like, I'm getting mine, girl, you better get yours. So, but this here, right here, these brothers are saying they immobilized the marches of the movement and imprisoned many people. Now they monitor the music, making martyrs out of you and me. The emblem is a panther, not a pimp. And my woman is an empress if you ever get a glimpse. My impression of a moron is an empty-minded man. Come on. These are what are being sold. This is the corporate name drop. We had the names before. Biko, Ivy Wells. This is the corporate name drop. Cristal, Gucci, get that diamonds. Get that ice. Who cares how much blood's attached to it? Get that ice. Who cares if some Congolese kids, had their hands chopped off or were killed or working in slave-like conditions to get those diamonds? Who gives a damn? Get them. Get them. This is a glimpse, okay? This is, we should understand that this is a glimpse of what Viacom owns. It's not all that Viacom owns. We look at this. News Corporation, which owns Fox News, and MySpace, and New York Post. They also control 3/4 of the world's viewership, because they're not just in the U.S., but they're in the UK. They own the largest cable company in China. So, break it down right here. If you didn't believe me, here it is. It's actually a little bit worse right now than those numbers would let you know. So, this is what I was telling you about before. The ownership of full power radio stations. And then here's the breakdown of this country. So now even broken down by proportion. All right, so we know 66%, 65% of the U.S. population is white, but 92% of the radio stations are controlled by white individuals. All right, So let's go. And right here, this is just what I was talking about before. I don't just spend a lot of time on this. You know, and I get my numbers right from the FCC. FCC, Federal Communications Commission. All right, get it right from the FCC. 0.6% of all full-power television stations owned by black people. Okay, but I want to also let you know that the story of controlling media in the black community has always been a part of black people's legacy. It's just become more and more dwindled down. And you know, as I come to this close, I want you to understand that between the beginning of Reconstruction and the beginning, or between the beginning of the Reconstruction and the beginning of the 20th century, there were no less than 240 newspapers, independent black newspapers, that were controlled by and operated by black people coast to coast. So this is an artist that you won't hear on the radio either. This is wise intelligence saying, you know, black people do not control the distribution of anything in America. Nothing. From everything from the food on the table to the clothes on his back, roof over his head, you know, the education, the drugs, the alcohol on his corners are controlled by people who are not black. He said it right on. And he goes on to talk about BET and Viacom. You know, BET is, and Clear Channel with BET, MTV, which are Viacom. And then he goes on, and this is a white guy right here, down here, Bob McChesney. It's a book that I use in my class that I teach called The Problem with the Media. And he said, nowhere in popular music, and he's not even a hip-hop guy, he's just a media scholar, is the tension more dramatic than in hip-hop. After taking a warm-up, the corporate media has fallen in love with the genre. It influences fashion trends and how the media in corporate America builds credible relationships. So we see it in video games. It gets into video games. And this all lends itself towards, as we're going to see with public policy, this is a video game. The goal of this game is to pick one of several black and brown, you know, rappers, and the goal is to get to the top of the hip-hop world. All right, not by working together with MC Rayshawn Ray, not working together with MC Modesta over here. No, but fighting. This right here is right this here. I blew this up. This is the description of the video game. Played by kids. Okay, played by kids. Chicago is delivering stone-stunning action and bone-breaking beats as players live out the life of hip-hop mogul, going from rags to riches, incorporating hip-hop culture in every aspect of the game. Def Jam, and here's the thing, right there under your nose. Def Jam icon will deliver the intensity of a no-holds-barred street fight, but with style and rhythm. They just said, we're delivering violence with music. Violence with music. Music will affect how players fight, not work together, fight in each venue. And environmental interactions and hazards will become key to staying alive, not working together to staying alive. Real quick, probably like 4.5 now. Just want to hear Hurricane Katrina and the flood, the aftermath. We have right here, we have the press, Associated Press, aerial view. We just know that this kid's, you know, he's looting, right? I mean, if we were in that area, you would be doing what you can to survive. The grocery stores are destroyed anyways, you're going in there. But right here, the description of this young African-American male, maybe 16, 17 years of age, maybe younger, a young man walks through Chef Street floodwater after looting a grocery store. Down here, white couple or white friends or white woman and white man, two residents wade through chesty water after finding bread and soda. Oh, they're finding. But here's the public policy. We know this little black boy, yeah, he's a criminal. He's a criminal, but that's what most of them are. He's a criminal. So we attach the word looting. Looting. But to them, oh, nice white folks, no. They were just finding.